Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, a podcast devoted to helping you overcome challenges in your life that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. Each episode features interviews with people from all walks of life about their journey of self-development and the principles they utilize to overcome their fears to achieve their desired outcome. Ready to be enlightened? Here's your host, Ken Primus.
Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment. I got a surprise for all you guys. I got a good treat for you, especially for those who are married and couples and thinking about being a couple. I got a surprise, and I think you guys ought to listen. So put the kids down, get relaxing, get the hubby, get the girls, get your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever. This is family time. Let's do this and learn. And I'm excited. But first, I want to welcome our guests, because I know they're coming with a couple of things I deem very expensive. That is their time. Every one of us on this planet, 24 hours. What a precious, precious commodity. I spent that like a crazy young man when I was young. I didn't understand the value of it. But as I got older, I gained some stuff. I understand that she loves me. If I work with her, she will reward me greatly. And so I want to alert you guys to study time. See how she can work with you and grant you much. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful creator, and it has created both of these individuals before us, Meredith and Craig. And so I want to talk to them, because the journey, the creator has deposited a couple of things inside of them, and we want access to those things. What are they? Wisdom, knowledge, insights. Why do we want that stuff? Why? Because we want to become better human spirits while we are here on this planet, so that we can express ourselves fully. Meredith and Craig, thank you so much to become.
Absolute honor. Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much, Ken. We're excited to be here.
It is great to have you guys. Hey, by the way, Happy New Year, man.
Hey, Happy New Year to
Happy
you too.
New
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. I know a lot of people are ducking it, but I'm ready, man, because I can sense all the changes that are necessary to make this collective grow up a little, if you will. I'm going to ask this question is ladies first, man. As I mentioned to you, there are two journeys that we go on. The first being our individual journey, the independent one. Then we have the interdependent journey. And the question is to you, Meredith. How do you serve mankind?
Well, I serve people through sharing my journey, through sharing my wisdom, what I've learned along the way, because we're all on our own journey and we all have our own obstacles, and we're all doing it by ourselves. Sometimes we have the pleasure of having a partner along this journey, but ultimately the journey is your own. Whether you join forces or you don't join forces, you're on your own journey, and there's a lot of obstacles and a lot to overcome. And through my journey, I've learned some really hard lessons along the way, and I love sharing those lessons. And I don't think we can all avoid our own lessons, but I do think we can learn from each other's as well. And so I love serving other people, helping them see the potential and the greatness inside of them, whether that's together in a relationship, which is where we do love spending our time, but me specifically love that. And especially I love helping women through my own personal journey. I've overcome a lot of issues with my own self-worth, my own self-confidence, my people-pleasing, my imposter syndrome, my perfectionism. And it's so much better when you can kind of work through some of those things. And so I love helping people overcome some of those obstacles and get onto the other side where they can more clearly see their own value and their own worth, whether that's in a relationship or by themselves.
Yeah, when you have been there, you're passionate about helping people to get out of there.
Yes, fair.
Becoming most of us at some point is doing things to please others and not understanding the value about the self. And it takes us a little while to get that insight.
Yeah.
And to understand that when we look at ourselves, even if we look at ourselves first, we're not really negating the others. We just understand that, I need to take care of me first before I do anyone else. And I always use the example of the plane, when they always tell the people, make sure you put the mask on first before you are able to attend to someone else, including Johnny and little Mary. You gotta be okay so that you can take care of them. So Craig, now we're going to turn to you, man. In how do you serve mankind as Meredith laid out her case?
Yeah, it's honestly, I'm happy that you let her go first because it's always ladies first. But my answer is very similar in that it's all about your personal journey and then the lessons you learn and how you're able to pass those on and pay it forward, if you will, so that the rest of society, the rest of mankind, humankind, can benefit from all the lessons and the hardships and the things that you've undertaken, that you've learned, that you've gone through. All those experiences are valuable and they can help so many people. So it's all about, for me, being able to put on my mask, understand who I am as a person. And that journey it's challenging sometimes to dig deep and to understand who you are, and then to show others the path on how they can also see and find out who they are. Because we talked before this, is I don't think you can really fully have the full human experience until you really truly understand who you are at your core. And so if I'm able to put in that work and all the people that I've met and I've learned from, and if I can take all that information, download it, and then pass it along to the next person and pay that forward, I think that's a huge service to mankind in helping them become the best version of themselves so that we can take this journey together. And if everybody's doing that, if everybody is taking all that information and then reaching behind them and pulling the next person along, that's the kind of world I want to live in. And so I think just being part of that chain for me has been how I serve mankind.
Yeah, and that's one of the insights that I had, and I put down threads of enlightenment because I believe every one of us have these threads and our ability to weave this tapestry together of wisdom and knowledge and so forth so that we can assist each other and bring each other out of pain and suffering, because we've all been there. And the faithful ones have gone out and come to the other side. And as Craig said, it's painful. I always tell people, the people who have gone through personal development and come on the other side, those are some of the toughest people you'll ever meet on this planet. Don't be fooled because you see a guy lifting weight and lifting a couple of pounds and stuff like that, because those individuals have gone and stripped away and gone into the dark places and took a look at themselves and have to come out loving that and honoring that and respecting that and all of that stuff. And so that is some person that has done some deep stuff. And have you heard the terminology shadow work and all these different terminologies that people use to describe the fact that we have to go in there and dig. One of the very first places or customs that we do here, guys, is we revisit the first location. As I mentioned to you, there are certain locations that we visit while we are here on this planet. And that first is the family. And to be honest with you, this first location is a bunch of strangers that we have. We have mom and dad and strangers. We don't know anything about these couple, but we know that we are part of this group that is labeled as a family. We may have some brothers and sisters along with that, and each and every one of them in this grouping is on their own journey. But in this grouping here, we're going to learn some stuff. We're going to be given birth, if you will. We're going to learn how to communicate emotionally with self and others. What was your family like, Craig? Your beginnings, if you will.
Yeah, humble beginnings. Like I grew up in a middle to lower middle class upbringing. I had my mom and dad and one brother who's 4 years younger than me. And my dad was in the military, so we moved around quite a bit. So I was born in one city. I lived there until I was 2, and then we bounced around. And every 2 to 6 years, 4 years probably on the average, we would move to a different place. So I was always the new kid. I was always the trying to figure out who was who in the zoo, I guess, if you will. And I would just adopt whatever facade, if you will, that I thought I needed to survive. So I was almost like a kind of like a chameleon growing up a little bit, because we moved around so much that I just wanted to fit in. Yeah.
And being a chameleon, because that's what we have to do. You have to survive. As you were looking at that behavior, because all of these things that we are doing is strictly behavioral stuff. And those behaviors, if you will then start to affect our belief system. What was happening to this young man with all of that moving again, because the military in and out, I understand that. I know what that feels like. But it does something to us. It does something. It causes us to not trust. It causes a few things to start manifesting, if you will, begin to brew. What was yours that you began to exhibit while you were in this chameleon type of lifestyle?
Yeah. I would say for sure. I trust is hard. Like it's something that I have to, I need time. It doesn't come immediately for me. It's something so that is definitely something that I brought on to myself. Another is that I think I lost confidence in myself a little bit because I was never
Mm-hmm.
who I actually truly was. And so lack of confidence a little bit in some areas. In some areas I was very confident. I played sports and I was fairly good. So in certain pockets I would be more confident than in other areas. But when I had to interact with people on a large scale, I would lack confidence. And then anytime I was shown love or appreciation or anything, it never really truly landed for me because I wasn't actually being me. It wasn't meant for the actual me because I was pretending. And so it wouldn't really land. And so obviously then when you're not getting that, you feel unworthy of
Yeah.
love. And so there's an unworthiness component that I've had to battle my whole life of, not being good enough and trying to be perfect and to show up and never make mistakes. I can't let people see me fail. Like those are all things that have manifested as a result of my upbringing for sure.
Yeah, and usually one of the main reasons why I began, especially at the family location, is because of that. Like we find that those things are the things that follow us all the way to adults.
Yeah.
And we have to deal with those things that were given birth as young kids, regardless of whatever the lifestyle that mom and dad were. And as they say, we were a part of collateral damage, but it affected us, and we have. That's our journey, is to locate some of them, and some of them are still hidden. I mean, I'm on this. I'm 63, and I've been on this journey, and some of them I'm still uncovering. Some of them that I thought that I handled, things would come up, and I said, "Wait a minute, I thought that was under control." But then there were some things that was still needed, different aspects of it that I needed to deal with, that I didn't see, and maybe as different circumstances brought it up, because I was like, man, I thought I dealt with that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
here it is. The same question to you as your family again, stranger in with a bunch of strangers. What was your family unit like?
I come from similar, like a middle class family. My parents were together until I was about 20 years old. So I had the family unit with two younger sisters. So I'm the oldest of three girls.
Hmm.
And interestingly, being the oldest, I've took on a couple of roles, I think, within that family unit. One being the role model, setting the example for my sisters. And with that came an internalized perfectionism, similar to Craig, but for different reasons. I was supposed to be the one to show them the way, and therefore, I was very good in school. I got a lot of praise for being smart. So my marks were very important. And so I internalized a lot of that perfectionism from I think just my role in the family, my position in the birth order. And also with that role came, I'm the family peacemaker. I'm the
Hmm.
one people come to when they're having a hard time with the other ones, and I try to keep the peace, which also has shown up for me as, I think that's the birth of my people pleasing, where a lot of that came from, that I'm trying to keep everybody happy and
Yeah.
keep everything smooth, and all of that falls to me. It's a lot of responsibility. And so both of those two attributes I've had to work through because of just my role within our family. And then I would say I've also had to unlearn some things just through, the way you learn things growing up by what's role modeled to you. Everyone in my family was doing the absolute best they could, and I had two loving parents, and I had a wonderful childhood. I have no complaints around my childhood. However, there was the way people communicated with each other or didn't communicate, how vulnerabilities were shared or weren't. I learned a lot of things that I had to unlearn around how to properly communicate so I can actually be vulnerable and be who I am. Because the complete opposite of Craig's experience growing up, where he moved around a lot, I grew up in a pretty small town, like not a small town, but I don't know, 20, 30,000 people. And so when I went to school, I was in the same class of 20-ish kids from grades 1 to 6. And so similar to him, but for opposite reasons, I also had to figure out, who do I need to be within this group of people so that I can fit in? Because I'm not going to get any sort of fresh blood or new people for the next 6+ years until I change schools. And so I don't want to be a social outcast for the next 6 years. So even at, 6 years old, it sort of was somehow this internal drive that I need to fit in with these kids and be accepted, which I didn't learn till much later is the complete opposite of fitting in. But, from my perspective at that time, I wanted to be accepted by a group. So who do I need to be? And then bubbling up with all of that is the perfectionism and the people pleasing that make sure everyone gets along, make sure everyone likes me, make sure my marks are good and no one sees me fail. And from that was born, I would say, a very significant fear of rejection. And that was a big battle for me that I've had to deal with for many, many years.
Yeah, one of the things why one tries to please is because you don't want to be rejected. And I was in that clan, if you will, unpacking all those things, man. I tell you, the journey is a beautiful thing, but it's messy. There are days that you curl up and I always tell people, curl up, take your 5 minutes, and then get up and go. Everyone needs their 5 minutes, and we're human, and we're not superhuman, we're human. When you take your beating, and then I always say to myself, and I tell others that this is one of the lessons I had to learn. I had to learn to be very careful what I say because I was listening to what I was saying. You're listening, and so be very careful. Do not mimic everything that you hear about yourself. Learn to dispel some of those because you are actually listening to what you're saying, and you will eventually believe you. So whether it's consciously or subconsciously, but you will believe you. And then most of that life that we spend is unpacking what we have believed because we said that we believed it. And so we have to learn how to retrust ourselves again. It's an incredible madness that we've done to ourselves as a result because of not knowing who we are. So here you guys are. We see now where all of the core beliefs are and how they manifest in our life. As you're going through, Meredith, as you're moving through life, and this perfectionist young woman is moving through, and you're going towards college. And you know how it is with college. Everyone is pushing you a certain way, and mom and dad have their belief. And, what was how did that look as far as college? And which field of study did you pick, and why did you pick it?
Oh, that's a very good question. So I ended up applying to my local home university. So I lived at home for my 4 years of undergrad and got a full tuition scholarship. As the good perfectionist that I am, my marks were fantastic. So, I saved a lot of money by staying at home. And I think that was part of the conditioning that I learned growing up. And the program, the field of study I went into was biology. I did biology with a math minor because I liked science. I liked math. I was good at it up until that point when I was making that decision. I was good at it. It has a right answer, like, math specifically. It's right or it's wrong. There's not a lot of gray. You can show your work, but you it's yes or no. And I perfectionism really enjoys being right or wrong. So I can see how I ended up there. And the biology, the science, I thought I was going to go on and be a doctor or be a lawyer, which doesn't necessarily make sense with the biology, but I had these grand visions, and I kind of liked understanding how we came to be and how we work. And I think a little part of me also thought science was kind of a prestigious degree. Like, it makes me feel smarter if I have a degree in science. Even though I've done nothing really with that degree, I didn't need a science degree for any of my subsequent careers down the line. Any degree would have worked to get me in the door at the companies, but science was where I ended up because I was smart, and that's what smart people do.
And Craig, same question to you. What was, and again, because your lifestyle, you're moving all over the place, military type. Most of the young men at that time, I mean, in family like that, they'll utilize the military for college and all the different type stuff, things like that. What was your conversation like, and where did you go?
So it's interesting because I grew up believing that, like, as I was growing up, I was hearing from my parents, it was almost a foregone conclusion, you were going to university. Like, so I just believed that that was the path, that you went to school, got good grades, and then went to another school and got more good grades, and then went and joined the corporate life and got a corporate career. So my dad, even though he was in the military, wasn't necessarily pushing military on me. It wasn't, he didn't necessarily want that for me. And so the message I heard from my parents and counselors and other people around me was university, college. And so, but I'll be honest with you, I never really liked school that much. I was okay. Like, I wasn't really the type of kid who was going above and beyond with the studying. Mare was, she was the studier. She was getting all the good grades. I was getting by. I didn't put in the extra effort to really study it because I didn't actually enjoy it. But I also was getting this message that it's school. Like, that's your future. You're going back to school. And so I went to university. And when I went into university, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Like, what path do I want to take? What do I want to major in? Because I actually, when I think about it and look back on it, I actually didn't want to be there at all. But I took a year where I just took a bunch of different courses, like general studies, and tried to figure out, what do I like? What do I want to do? And I took a psychology class that was the most interesting to me. It wasn't like it was, oh my God, this is for me. I need to jump on this. This is what I need to study. It was more like, I don't like this, or this. This is the lesser of all these evils. I'm going to take psychology. So I actually majored in psychology. And I think it was interesting for me because growing up and moving around a lot, I was observing people and trying to study people and figure out who they were and how I would fit in. And so psychology, looking back, seems like a very logical choice for someone who maybe had that background.
Yeah.
So I chose psychology. I went through that, but looking back, I realized that it is actually something I'm interested in. And now that I'm on this personal growth journey, it's really all about psychology and learning who I am. And right, like, if there was something there, I just didn't know that it was, I didn't want to do it for a career, let's say.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question, because here you are in psychology and you're studying the principles of psychology, and that those principles has to do with human behavior. And now you're on this side. You're seeing the importance of all of that data. Now that when you were there and you were immersed in all of that data, did it penetrate at all?
See, the thing I love about psychology is the stuff that I'm learning now about, and I'm doing it self-study, right? Like, I love learning and understanding the traumas that I experienced as a child and how they've manifested and how I came to be who I am through life, and how I can unlearn and then rewire my brain and tell myself different stories that actually serve me to build a better future. But my degree wasn't that. It was learning about Freud and, like, the history, and there's some great stuff in there, don't get me wrong, but it's not the stuff that really fills me up and that really gets me going like what I'm learning now does. And so, to answer your question, not really. It didn't really land for me in that, because the studying I was doing for psychology was just rote memorization to pass a test. It was just learning different things about Freud or different other psychologists, about the history of it and some of the studies that happened that kind of got us to where we are. But really, what lights me up is building my dream and understanding who I am and how to become the best version of me. And that's not what I was learning in my studies.
Yes, usually their processes and not really an internal approach at all. How did they come up with what they're trying to this, that, and it is so compact and so pressed for time that you don't get a chance to really dance with the nuances of what it does and how it dismantles your belief and begins to remodel and reprogram, as you said, the mind and so forth. Because as we're moving through, we're going to our quote unquote independence, our adulthood. So, Meredith, what was your first job? Because the programmers, what they're telling us is this, and it's the most morbid contract that I would say 90% of the planet lives on and moves about on. The contract that they have is that we're born. We go to church. We get a couple of beliefs from the church and stuff like that. We go to school. We get some friends, whatever. We go to college. We get drunk. We come out. We barely make it out of there. No, we get a job, and we meet this girl or a guy. We marry. We get this white picket fence thing, and the house with the white picket fence, the car, and the dog, the 2.5 children, and then we could save up some money, buy a house. And then we are able at some point once we accumulate all the time, to go for this 2-week vacation, that we hope to have enough money to pay for because we have all the other things that happen to us. And then we're going to die. That's it.
Mhm.
You may live to see your children graduate and stuff like that and whatever. You're out. That is the program that they have just given it to us. And I would say about 90% of people live that and die there. And so there's just a small percentage that unhooks and begins to have this concern about us be serving others. Wait a minute, come on up. You got into corporate America.
Mhm.
Talk to us, because again, we go there and we do all the things they say. And then we get there and we're making all the money, some of us, and it's just miserable as hell.
Mhm.
It's not what it is made up to be. What was your story like, your history, Meredith, when you began to walk into the corporate world?
Yeah, what you just described is what we refer to as the default life. Like that was our
Yeah, that's
default
it.
programming, and I was on that journey, and I was checking all of those boxes. Go to
Mm-hmm.
school, get good grades, go to school, get more good grades, get to the corporate career, get the promotions, get all those, checking all those boxes. And so when I got into my corporate career and I got a good corporate job with a big energy company, and I had lots of room to grow and get promotions and raises and bonuses and all the things, and I was doing all of those things. And on the one hand, sort of vulnerabilities, my fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of all those fears, they were because I was checking all those boxes. And from the outside looking in, society saw me as successful, all the
Mm-hmm.
investments and the bank accounts and the house. And like from the outside looking in, I was having success. I was meeting all the milestones society told me I was supposed to be meeting. Maybe not right on schedule because I was single at 30, but that's for later. But I was checking all of those boxes, and yet while I should have felt fulfilled according to what I had been conditioned and learned, I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't feeling fulfilled. And I had jobs within that career where in theory, I should have felt fulfilled. I got to work in health and safety. I got to help people with their wellness and their health. And then I got to work in inclusion and diversity. And I got to feel like I was making a difference with a little bit within our corporate structure. And so I had a couple of different roles that in theory should have left me feeling fulfilled with what I was doing. And
Yeah.
yet I wasn't. Yet it wasn't all bad. I don't mean for it to sound like it was a horrible experience. I had a wonderful corporate experience in general,
Mm-hmm.
but I felt like I had more to offer than I was capable of offering within the confines of my corporate structure. There was a lot of frustration and obstacles and beating your head against a wall because leadership doesn't get it. And there's all the corporate frustrations that were caging me, that were making me feel like I had a lot more I could offer the world, that would leave me feeling like I was contributing to something greater than myself, that need wasn't getting met in my corporate world. And so that eventually, with some other variables, led to the decision to jump out of that corporate airplane and figure out how to build a parachute on the way down.
Yeah, I call it the years of the silent disturbance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it has nothing to do with your performance. We're all
Totally.
actors to a degree, and we are performing well in the default program. I mean, we're shining. This is what they say, and that's what we're doing. And we are their favorite word that they love to tell us. We are normal. We're doing normal things, And so we're normal. We're just part of the normal group. But that's the silent disturbance that is sitting there deep within the subconscious being. It goes to sleep with you, it wakes up with you. While you're celebrating the promotion, it is sitting there with its hands crossed, looking at you and not a part of it at all. And you know it, you and I both know it, but we're smiling and clapping, and then when we are separated from the mass of people celebrating, it starts whispering to you again. Craig, talk to me about your experience in there, because we all got to go there, man. That's what they tell us, So what was your experience like?
Very similar. It was, leaving university, getting into a corporate career, finding a good job that, same benefits, investments, promotions, all that good stuff. Looking back, I realized that, not wanting to go into university was a calling. Like, there was something, I was getting the whisper from the universe that university maybe isn't what you want to do. Maybe you want to be an entrepreneur. Maybe you want to go and do something completely different. But I didn't listen to that whisper. And so I went in and I got the corporate job. And I also, when I was in, so I jumped around. So I didn't go right from university right into my corporate job, where I would say I spent the 10, 12-year corporate career. I jumped around and found a couple other jobs. And then I went back to school, actually, because I was told that where I lived, it's health and safety. I was investigating incidents and that sort of thing is what I ultimately ended up doing. But to do that, I needed to go back to school, and they said, this is where you're going to make all your money. This is a great opportunity. This is what you need to do. And it was all about money. It was all about, and because that was the value that I was seeing people were putting on money. And it was like, okay, to fit in, I'm going to also want to have a high value on money. I got to go and get a corporate career in this specific area so that I can make all the money and be accepted and fit in again. Right? Like, back to my childhood of like, who's who and how do I fit in? So I went back to school for health and safety education so that I could get this job, this specific type of job that could make me a whole bunch of money. I'm very thankful I did. We ended up meeting at work, by the way, but we'll talk about that. I'm very
We're going to go there,
Yeah, we'll go there. But I'm very thankful about the journey. But along the way, I also met another girl, someone, not Meredith, another girl. And this was actually in just out of my first university. I met someone and we got engaged and we got married and we did our thing. And I was so unfulfilled with my life, my choices. And I realized that I had just been going along, and I got the girl on time because that was the expectation. Is, to your point earlier, married, have the 2.2 kids and the white picket fence and build the house. And I felt like I was sliding behind on that schedule. And so I settled for a situation that wasn't meant for me long term, that wasn't in my best interest. And so I got married. It only lasted a couple years. We weren't right for each other. It was oil and water, and we eventually went our separate ways. And all along that journey, I was hearing, as I was in my corporate career, so I'm unhappy in my corporate career. I'm also unhappy in my personal life. And I'm hearing this whisper of, this isn't for you in both cases. This isn't for you. I'm hearing the whisper all along and I'm ignoring it. It's like, no, this can work. I'm going to make people do that. Everyone else is doing this. They're all pushing through. Like, what am I? I can do it too.
I'm no different.
Yeah, I'm no different. Like I can survive this. Survive this. That was my mentality. Survive, not
Yeah.
thrive. I can survive this. And so as I'm going through this, I get to a point where I just wake up one day and I'm unhealthy. I look at myself in the mirror, and to my point earlier, I played sports all my life. I was relatively fit, healthy all along. I'd let myself go. I was unhappy, I was depressed. And I look at myself in the mirror one day and I'm just like, what are you doing? And really it was the universe was whispering all along until this one particular day I got up and it just felt like the universe was screaming at me. Like, give your head a shake. This isn't, you're not happy. This isn't what you want. And so I had to make a bunch of very difficult decisions. I have a very difficult conversations about my career, about my my relationship, about my health with myself. And that's when I started to make a few changes. And that's when I got into this other career and started to, have a little bit more, I would say, success, but still some unfulfillment. I didn't like change the world overnight. I was making small changes as I went, but my career was leaving me unfulfilled. And all along, I always felt like, to Mare's point, there was just more for me out there. I'm not serving the world in a way I know I can. I was just chasing the almighty dollar, and that's never going to make you happy at the end of the day. Money is just a tool, it's just a resource. It's never the thing that's going to make you happy. And I was just starting to realize that later on. But when I look back at my life, I look at all the moments where I would volunteer or I would coach a sports team or I would go to the hospital and help sick kids. And I realized there's a service, there's something in me that I just want to give back.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized that there's more for me out there.
I think we all dance within the threads of our calling. And I always utilize this story because it always freaks me out. I grew up in the church, and Jesus Christ, I was reading this story. He's walking on this seashore kind of thing, is from what the data said. And these two guys are doing their corporate America job, a bunch of them. They're called fishermen. They're doing their thing. And I'm sure they must have had the same conversation we have. I don't see how I could get up the ladder. I don't know where I can go from here and that kind of thing. Because he looks at them and he says, follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. Now, that terminology always freaked me out because they don't know what the hell that means. They've never heard what that means. So they dropped their job in a second. It said they dumped everything and followed him. And that, when I saw that, and I said, wow, it has to be something really intense that pulled them away from there. And as I got older in my life, I realized it was their assignment that pulled them. They felt something deep that it was beyond that job that pulled them towards that language, and they were able to dance in it. But later on in life, those guys recognized and realized the cost of what that means. We know that in history, one of them was hung upside down. A bunch of them was stoned. People were told. I mean, the cost of going after your assignment is expensive. And so when we disconnect from the program, because they toss their nets and disconnected and from the program and chase the assignment, there is reward. Because we read about some of the rewards that they did. They became some of the most powerful servants on the planet. They changed the world, stuff like that. So there's some reward there. But the price is expensive, and you have to be humble enough to want to spend that kind of stuff to accomplish your assignment. So here you are, man. You guys are working in the same space. Now, let me ask this question. At that place right there, separately, did any one of you begin to entertain personal development? Separately. But at any time, any one of you had any thought of, anything at all in that space?
I didn't.
No, I think there was little whispers along the way. Like I'd get a little book or whatever, but I never really dove into it, and so it would just sit. And so no, I never really took it serious up to this point. But there were little whispers. If I look back, there were little opportunities where it was definitely the book was right there. I could have picked it up and read it, but I didn't have the interest or the motivation, or there was something missing to take me to that next step to actually
Yeah, we weren't
execute on
ready.
it.
We
I wasn't
just
ready.
weren't ready.
I just
Yep.
wasn't ready.
When we're
Yeah.
ready, then we pick it up.
Yep.
That's right.
Because if you had picked it up before, you'd look at it and you'd probably just wipe onto the book and then put it back down because you weren't ready to open the pages. And when we're ready, the title itself is what will engage and draw us and pull us to that book, and then we'll begin to open those pages. But when we're not ready, we're not ready. And that's not anything at all. So you guys meet first before the awakening. Talk to me about that enchanting day when you guys, Meredith, talk to me about it, because I know Craig probably don't remember, and I don't want to get him in trouble. So I'm gonna let you refresh his memory, and then I'm gonna ask him about it. Say he's gonna have a head start on that. I'm with you, man. I just want to cover, get you. All right. So,
Appreciate you guys.
Meredith, talk to me about that first encounter. What was that?
Well, we worked for the same company, and interestingly, we worked in different areas of the company, and there were 3 people retiring, and they were doing a retirement party for 3 people. He worked with one, I worked with one, and I don't know who the third one was. And so we were both at this retirement event. It was at a bar, and people were speaking, and all these interesting speeches were being had. But after that, there was just people just mingling. So there's a lot of different people there because there was 3 different people retiring, and we just ended up in a conversation. And it's interesting because I wasn't gonna go. I told the woman I would go to her retirement thing, and then the day came, and I really didn't feel like going. But then she came to my office door, like, "You're coming, right?" "Yep, I'm coming. I'll make an appearance anyway." And I won't totally speak for him, but now knowing him, he hates that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm happy he ended up at that event. And we just ended up in a conversation that just felt very comfortable. And we ended up being among the last to leave, which especially for him, super unusual. For me, once I get there and I'm having fun, I'm likely to stay. He's always looking to leave. And so we ended up being among the very last to leave that night. And then when I got home, I had a text message on my work phone from him, just a little message, which he had just moved onto my floor, I think. He just moved on into my floor at work, was sharing an office with a man I knew. That was our first encounter. And that text message when I got home from him on my work phone sort of prompted me to go have a visit the next day. And from that moment, we just started chatting, and I could tell right away that it was different because I had been single for about 10 years. I had had a long-term relationship that ended badly, and I was virtually single for a decade and hated dating. I hated it. And again, because of all the perfectionism and the imposter syndrome and the people pleasing, and I never felt comfortable in a conversation with anyone that I was dating. And when he and I started talking, the conversation just flowed. Like it never felt like anyone was keeping track of who texted first last time and who, none of that sort of mental gymnastics was happening. I felt like I could talk to him and he understood me and we had similar values. And when we really started having conversations, he was finishing my thoughts almost. We were very in sync, and the conversation just felt so easy that I knew there had to be something here.
Isn't that a wonderful plan that was done on behalf of you guys to bring you together?
Very.
You have one lady coming to you, Meredith, and say, "You're coming, right?" And you have this gentleman, that's not his thing at all. I just don't do that. And yet, this guy who doesn't do that, here he is, one of the last to leave. When things are done, and when the designers wants us to meet, when they have chosen certain people and the destiny of things, it's amazing how they put it together. And all we can do is enjoy the process and be a part of the planning, because this planning was done way before you guys even hit this planet. And here you are. Craig, talk to me about that day from your perspective when you who don't want to do this type of stuff and is not a part of your your MO at all. And here you are, and you're chatting away, man. It's you're closing the bar, as they say.
I was a butterfly that night. Yeah. So similar. It's not my thing. It's not something that I normally go to. It's a lady though that I had worked with for a few years, and so I wanted to. And I shared an office with a fella who was gonna go, and he asked me if I was going, and kind of put a little bit of pressure, not too much, but was like, yeah, you should go, kind of thing. And I felt a little bit of internal pressure that I'd worked with this lady, and I think to honor her, I wanted to at least put in a quick, hey, I'm here, kind of see me, and then bounce. But yeah. And I was going through a tough time. Like, I had gotten out of my other relationship, and I wasn't necessarily looking for a bunch of social time. I was more interested in kind of the alone time and just focusing on me and doing all that stuff. But I went, and yeah, it's similar to what she said. There was a couple speeches, and then there was some mingle time, and usually that would be my time to bounce. And this particular one, I felt called to stay. I stayed, and I made my rounds, and I was weirdly a social butterfly, going around to different people in the bar, talking to them and catching up. And because it was a very diverse work event. There was people from all different areas of the company. So people that I had worked with years ago, and so I'm seeing them now for the first time in maybe quite some time. And so just catching up with different people. And then I find myself in this group with Meredith, and eventually, one-on-one conversations start to happen as you're in these groups. And that's what happened. We just started talking and connecting, and to her point, the conversation just flowed very easily. She was easy to talk to. We had similar values, very similar interests, and then we were amongst the last to leave. I sent her a little text like, "Hey, I really enjoy, like, this isn't my thing, but I really enjoyed talking to you tonight." And so I just left it, and then over the next few weeks or months, we just started chatting more and more and got together a few times, and then it just started to blossom from there. And it was just, to your point, looking back, like Steve Jobs says, you could never connect the dots looking forward, but looking backwards, you can see all the little happy coincidences and little things that the universe put in place to help make that thing happen, whatever it was. And for us, it was obviously this beautiful relationship. So
yeah, that party had to be specifically like that.
Mm-hmm.
Any other mix, it would have missed it. And so you had worked with people previously. That mix was necessary in order to keep you guys there, to bring you together. If that mix was different, it would have never probably happened.
It's so
that's
true.
The beauty of the whole thing. When it's being done, that's what people have to learn in the journey. There are aspects within the journey that we have to learn to surrender, because there's a plan already in place, and what you are going to do is just interrupt that plan, and you have to come to the end of your ability. Because I tell people, if you could have fixed it, you would have fixed it.
Yep.
A long time ago. I'm not that crazy where I'm gonna, let me go through all this pain and whatever, and then I'm gonna fix it. No. Yeah, I would have fixed it a long time. You would go, so because if you could have fixed it, you would have fixed it. Then you couldn't have fixed it. Then you need to do something and let someone else fix it. And you have
we went to university a couple of hours apart. And so we probably crossed paths at bars all through our early 20s, but we weren't meant to connect then.
It wasn't the right time.
Wasn't the time. Yeah. Wasn't the time. You would have looked at each other and said, he's stuck up. Or you would have said something to her, and that's a military brat, kind of, thing. And he had to go through some things. You had to go through some things to be mature enough to be able to have that conversation that you guys had, to capture both of your imagination and so forth. So here you are, you captured each other's imagination, guys, and you start your journey together. Talk to me when the entrance of your growth starts. Because as I said, you have that underpinning that is going to be sitting in both of you, and you both testify to it. This restlessness that is there makes life interesting, as they say. What was that conversation when you guys united and started talking about this? And how did your personal development enter in at this time?
Well, we were prompted to have the conversation. I'm not sure how much longer. We probably would have let it go a little longer if there wasn't an initiating factor. And so our company decided they were closing our office and moving all of us across the country.
Mhm.
And so we had the opportunity at that point to move across the country and get promotions, so check more of those boxes on that default life plan.
Another designer
Yep. Or we could
shut it
leave.
down.
And so in that moment, even though we had that underpinning of unfulfillment and even though all the things were lining up for us, it was still a very stressful decision because we were leaving the only life we'd ever known, the one we were conditioned to live. And so it was a big, scary leap to think about not doing that anymore. And we worked really hard to build the successful lives we were leading. And then at the same time, my dad got diagnosed with cancer, and we thought it was really bad and it would be his last Christmas. It was all happening in that fall. So we went home for Christmas that year to spend what we thought would be his last with Dad. And we were very grateful to find out it wasn't. In fact, his cancer was completely gone for a number of years. So we had 4 more years with Dad. He just passed this fall. That Dad's health was the perspective that we needed to be able to make this decision. And so once we made the decision to leave the corporate job, we had no idea what we were going to do. I can remember we were out for a walk in our neighborhood talking about that we made this decision and we didn't know what we were going to do, but it just felt like the right decision. And we're both, like you could probably have guessed from our perfectionism, type A. We like to have a plan, check everything off before we make a decision. And even though we didn't know what we were going to do, we just knew it was the right thing to do. And it was interesting. Once we made the decision, Dad's health improved immediately. And for the next 4 years, he was incredibly healthy, except for his last week. So it was just interesting how all those came together so that we would make the decision that we needed to make.
Planners.
So once we made it was an incredible. Yeah. It was shocking,
planners.
Really, when you look at it. And so we didn't know what we were going to do, but everyone seemed to be doing well in real estate investing. So let's jump into real estate investing. That's what we decided we would do. And
so we hadn't quite yet learned that lesson of not chasing money yet.
Yes.
That comes a little later because because real estate investing is not on our heart. It's not what we're called to do. It's not the thing. But we had this scarcity rising within us like we're leaving these corporate jobs and all the benefits and all the good things that were helping us sustain our life, and we need to replace that income.
Yeah. And
so we jump into this business, and
hated it.
Oh my goodness, it was not for us. Like we just I can't put into words how much I disliked that job
Misery.
that I basically created for myself.
That didn't pay you anything.
That didn't pay. And what I learned was like we hadn't really, and also it was impacting our relationship. Like we were because we had been very intentional, especially because of my history and hers, but going through these other difficult relationships, we were very intentional when we set out on our journey together that we were going to do it differently than we had done it in the past. We were very intentional about building a very strong marriage and having that be our foundation for everything else we build on top of. Exactly. But what we learned was when we went into this real estate business was the stress and the discomfort and the just sheer unfulfillment with that choice was impacting us a little bit. We were starting to get short with each other, little snipes and stuff like that with each other. And that's not like us. It's not normal. And so we had a very difficult conversation. We had to say, time out. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
This isn't for us. I'm unhappy. You're unhappy. Why are we doing this? Let's find a different way. And what we realized was we hadn't done the work to really understand, now that we've left behind the default life, what does our life by design actually look like? What do we want our life to be? Because we have to be intentional about building the life that we actually want. And so this is when we made that connection of, we don't actually know what our destination is, like what we're trying to achieve. We're just boats in the ocean, just bobbing along and going with the waves and end up wherever life takes us, which is what we were doing with our other life. Mm-hmm. So We need to be very intentional about building the life we want. And who do we want to be in this world? Who do we want to show up as? And how do we want to give back? How do we want to serve? What is our gift that we're going to provide the world? And that's the work that we started to develop then. That was the moment that we started in on personal growth and our personal journeys and how we're going to be the best version of ourselves and how we're going to serve the world.
That's powerful stuff, guys. I mean, I love that. Like I said, life for us is bolero. I tell people it's bolero, and until that the cymbals crashes, and then we know that hey, I made a turn that I should have never made that turn. But even though the cymbal crashes, it still sounds good in the song. In the song, that was that piece that caused you guys to sit down and go, wait a minute, this is not working. We need to find and become a student of what we want. And when you guys zeroed in on that, you began the trajectory that you're on right now. As you started this trajectory, guys, because what you do is noble work when you come to marriages and stuff like that, because we see the data on marriages and couples. We know the impact that, because again, they all believe a certain program and not understanding what they're going into, don't understand who they are, don't understand. They haven't built that foundation because they don't have it within themselves. They don't know nothing. And so because they don't have all of that, their marriage is basically drifting in the wind, just like everyone else's. Craig, your first marriage, we jumped in that boat, and I know exactly what that is. And all of our relationship, I tell people, I remember I was hanging out with this girl, and we were just spending a lot of time together, and we were in a supermarket, and she started arguing with me, and I looked at her and I said, everything you just said is a valid argument if we were dating. In her mind, she thought we were dating. In my mind, I didn't think we were there. I just thought we were just hanging out. And so I told her, I said, one day I woke up and I was dating, and I didn't even know I was dating. And I said, most of us are like that.
Mm-hmm.
We are in relationships because we woke up one day and we're hanging out with the individual. And next thing you know, they're either at our place, I'm over at their place, and then the next thing you know, we're dating. But in my inside, I have no commitment. I didn't decide inside. I'm just hanging out.
Yep.
But whatever language I was hanging out saying, she interprets or he interprets different, and that's the next thing you know, oh, this is your girlfriend. Oh, okay, And 10 years later, no, this is happens to me before, and 10 years, 5 years, and stuff like that, and we chew up our time while we're here on this earth, getting brutalized by the foolish decisions that we have done to ourselves, and we created that. No one else did but ourselves. And so, here you guys, man. I know what you do is noble stuff. I love it. When you guys made the decision to get off the default as a couple and create something as a couple. Talk to me about that piece when you began to put it together and say, this is the path that I feel that we're the reason the party happened, that we were brought together, and this is where we want to go and where we should go as a couple. What did that look like from your vantage point, Craig, and then same to Meredith?
It's really funny because when we decided that we were going to do it different and we were going to understand who we were, so we left behind the real estate business and now we're going to focus on what is it we were actually building towards. We still didn't really know what our gift was. We still had a lot of work to do on ourselves to figure out what we want and who we're going to be. And on that journey, we went to a bunch of personal growth events and read a bunch of books and listened to a bunch of podcasts. And it was at one of these events that we met a gentleman, and we just got to know him a little bit. And as we were, telling him our story, and we were hearing from other people as well that, you guys are on this cool journey together, and it looks like you've got a really dialed in relationship. Like, it looks like this must be very stressful, leaving behind corporate job, especially at the same time and going through all of this. And you seem to have a really dialed in relationship. Like, how do you make that work? And we were hearing that. And then we met this gentleman at one of these events, and he kind of said the same thing and said, you guys have something. You should be coaches. And then, as we got to know him a little bit more at different events, he said, I host my own event, and I would really like to see you guys on my stage speaking about relationships. And still to this point, we hadn't yet clicked on what it was we were going to do. Like, we're still bobbing along and learning about ourselves and figuring out life. But, when you're so close to something, sometimes you don't see it right away. So you need someone else with a different perspective to point it out to you. And that's kind of what we got with him. Was he's like, I want you on stage. And when we went on stage, we talked about relationships, and we had to start to think and codify our relationship and actually put something together that we could present to someone. Like, because when we were getting asked questions at all these events, we loved it, but it was just these ad hoc questions, and we would just give the answer. But it wasn't something that we had actually been intentional about codifying so that we could give to someone. It was just one-off questions. And then when we had that talk, we had to now codify our process. And that was the blueprint. That was when it clicked. That was the blueprint for us. And that talk is actually the blueprint for everything we do in our coaching now. Is it's obviously grown and evolved and all that stuff. But that was the base. The seed was planted there. And so that was basically how we got into coaching, and specifically relationship coaching.
Yeah. I mean, the sequence of steps is, to my memory, exactly the same. We just started going to events and helping people one-off, and it
felt really good.
It did.
It felt really good.
We really enjoyed that. Yeah. It made us feel good, like kind of the opposite of our corporate job. Like, corporate job was checking all the boxes, and yet we weren't feeling good. Where this, like, there was no logic behind it. There was no boxes to check. It just felt good. Mm-hmm. While we knew our relationship was our superpower, like, just for us, we didn't yet know the power of that superpower for others. Like, it was kind of like our own secret weapon, not something that was for other people, until it almost was validated, or, to Craig's point, like, it was pointed out to us, hey, this is special. Can you please explain your approach, your framework, your rationale for how you approach this to other people? And he said, I know you guys see it through the lens of your marriage, but this isn't just for married people. And that's when I realized that, the skills, the mindset, the approach for your marriage that makes a strong marriage, the skills that you use to build that rock solid foundation in a marriage, they're the same skills you use with your mom, with your business partner, with your best friend, with your kids, with your brother. It's the same skills to strengthen any relationship. And so when we got on stage, we spoke about it through the lens of our marriage, but we made sure to make clear that this also, whether you're married or not, these are important skills in your life for any relationship in your life. That was another piece of the puzzle that clicked into place for us.
Well, your first relationship is with yourself, and so relationship is relationship.
Correct.
Whether it's with someone else or whether the principles are still the same, that you have to participate with an individual, it's the same thing. You have to respect yourself, you have to honor yourself, you have to be patient with yourself, you have all the same thing. You have to forgive yourself. You have all these things that we do with others in a relationship is something we first must do with ourselves, because that is how we get the baseline, if you will. And so as I learn how to love myself and respect myself, I will know when someone disrespects me the minute that they do, because I know what it looks like to love and respect. And so we create the baseline with ourselves. And so the principle is you got to love yourself first. Because and that's why I always, people come to me, I remember when I was single and I didn't understand the walk and the journey. You know how we all are. I love you, I love you, I love you. And I was like, yeah. And then when I start the journey, guys, I realized people were just talking out their ass. To be honest, because when you love you, you've gone through some stuff to do that. You just don't love you just to love you. Oh, I love me. When you love you, you've gone through some stuff to even say that. and understand what you just said. And when you see, when I remember I was talking to this girl, and she said, "What are you looking for in a woman?" I said, "I'm looking for a woman that is in love with herself. I am looking for a woman who has the baseline, because if she has the baseline, I'm going to be one lucky man."
Yeah, it's super powerful. And we say it all the time because you can only love others to the degree you love and respect yourself. If you don't love and respect yourself, you don't have it to give to others. So it's so needed and necessary for all of us to have that love and respect for ourselves so that we can then give that in our relationships.
And that's always where we start with people, because it's the only relationship you have through your whole life. It's the most important relationship you have. And if you're not right with you, if you don't love you, to Craig's point, you can't give it to someone else if you don't give it to yourself. So you have to start
Absolutely,
there.
I agree with you guys. So here you are, man, and we need the others, because I always tell people are there in our life to point out the scotobas, our blind side, those things that we can't see, because you couldn't see it because you were so close. And so when this gentleman pointed it out to you guys and began to stretch you, and you began to stretch yourself, and you began to put those things together and create your process and so forth, and you guys now understand. You guys have been listening to us for a while. I invited you to sit down, put the kids away, the lovers and the boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, and wife. You've been listening, and I've invited you guys to cross over to become heroes. They have a couple of things. If you're going to provide all their links and so forth for you guys to get access to them, they have a couple of programs that you need to look into. You that are thinking about getting married, look into them, call them, talk to them, get all that stuff before you get married, and find out if this is the right one, so you don't end up in a relationship for 20 years and then you have to duck, and you don't want to do all that stuff yourself. So when you learn about relationship, they're going to teach you about you first, and then you'll look at the other persons that are around you, so that you can become the best you while you're here on this planet. Hey guys, I want to pick your brain on this thing now. So here you are going through all of your stuff. I know you had to deal with your imposter syndrome and all the different things as one is stretching themselves out and into a new world, because we're corporate trained, and we're comfortable there because we train there. We understand that language. But when we're in this world, you look at each other and say, "What the hell are we doing? Are you sure you know what we're doing?" I don't know, but I love what we're doing. And you have that type of thing, and you encourage each other. And talk to me about that first individual apart from you, because you individually are your first client, and then collectively you are your first client. But then there's that one, you're green, if you will. But you're there, and you have that one, the first one that has made that transition from the dark perspective, as I was talking about earlier. And they began to cross over to have that light bulb moment, if you will. I'm going to talk to Craig first, then you pick up one, see if you can pull one that impacted you. And then I'm going to go to Meredith and see if she has one that impacted her. Because I know it does differently, because you're different beings, but we know the outcome to those folks. Talk to me about the impact of that one that you remember when you were bringing into the new light, because the principle is, "And you shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free," or set you free, whatever their truth is. That when you brought them in and they saw it, and you got a chance to witness that, Craig, pick one of those and talk to me about it.
So there was a older couple who were married for a long time, and they were struggling to connect. They were almost like roommates, we'll say. Like they're just going through the motion of been together long enough that maybe it's just in the cards that we're together forever, but the connection, the true connection, the joy in the relationship was just not the same as early days. And I remember the gentleman in particular. I saw a lot of me in him, in that the perfectionist, the afraid of vulnerability a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And vulnerability is the secret weapon in your relationship. And so for me, watching him make the transition from almost like a stoic, like a rock, unemotional, not willing to open himself up, to getting to a point where he was able to be vulnerable with his wife and actually have meaningful conversations, not just like, did you pay that bill yesterday? More like I'm afraid of this, or I'm struggling with this, and opening up a little bit and actually sharing the true him. Though they've been together for 30 some odd years, they actually didn't really truly know each other because they hadn't actually shown each other the vulnerable side. They hadn't opened up. And so over the course of working with them, watching him make that transition and opening up and watching them connect was really cool for me. That was like a moment where it was like, we've got this. Like, this is really cool, and this is exactly why we do what we do. This feeling right here is like, if you could bottle it and give it to people, like, it's invaluable. Like, that was a cool moment.
I love to see men vulnerable. I love when men, because we have been programmed that vulnerability in men is not being a man.
Yeah. It's almost like we feel like it's unmanly. You can still be a man. In fact, it makes you more of a man.
More, I think so too.
Yeah, when you're able to, go internal and share your true self with the world.
It takes a lot of strength.
It takes a lot of strength. And we see it as a weakness. Men in particular, we see it as a weakness, but really, truly, it's an actual strength.
And so for me, my couple, different couple, because I know who you're talking about, different couple, but still a couple, interestingly enough, who had been together 30 plus years. And they were going through our program, and there's one exercise in our program where we're walking people through having a vulnerable conversation. The steps to set the stage, to make it feel safe, all the things. And at the end, one of the last things, we asked them to share something they haven't shared with each other before. And at first, the couple's like, we've been together 30 years. We know everything about each other. It's like, we're not talking about the events of your life or specific conversations. We're talking about sharing something from inside of you that you haven't shared before. And of the two of them, I thought she would be the most willing to share something from inside. And he was the one who dug really deep and shared something with her that blew her away. And I was so incredibly proud of him in that moment, and so incredibly proud of us that we created a space that made him feel safe enough to be able to do that. Like, he didn't share that with us. He only shared it with her. And I don't know what it was that he shared with her. I just saw their reaction to that conversation. And I was so proud of him and so proud of us for helping equip him to be able to do that, to break through that barrier in their relationship. That, like, it still bubbles up a lot of emotion in me to think that we helped him get to that point, that he was capable of doing that and feeling comfortable and confident and safe enough to be able to share who he was with his wife of 33 years, which was pretty cool.
Those are the things that take the imposter syndrome and kicks it in the ass. And you guys are able to breathe and be. And when you are at that space, your effectiveness, you're actually in your power. You're actually standing and sitting in your power. And those that are in your sphere, and all of us are energy. And when you sit in your energetic power, that thing will rush right through and allow other energies to be able to have that space where they can feel the comfort of being trusted, secure, at peace, protected. All the things that are necessary that comes from you too, that goes to them, that creates that to them, because you have to feel that first. to emanate that. And when you feel that amongst you too, and you are at your events and so forth, and guys, they have events that you guys need to go. I'm telling you, I was looking into some of those things. I'm single, I may just go for the fun of it. But you have to have that in you to be able to offer it to others. And so I bow in humbleness and honor and respect to both of you for the service that you are doing and what you are doing and offering to those that are struggling in marriages and relationships and not knowing who their mate is and who they are. As you said, both of you guys talked about people that are in a relationship for 30 years that do not know their mate or their partner, nothing about them, not about the physical stuff and stories and whatever, but about the individual. And so I want to challenge all of you listeners out there that you're sitting down next to that man and woman that I told you to sit down and listen to this podcast. You want to get to know them? I got a couple of people that will help you down that road. If you don't know your husband or your wife, you need to get to know each other. And Meredith and Craig will be able to help you guys. You're going to provide all the links for you guys to get access to them. And hurry up, 2025, change your direction for your family, for yourself. And I want to hear all these stories again because I'm going to bring them back, have them tell me more stuff. Guys, I have kept you. This is the longest interview I've ever had because I was having so much fun learning from you guys and beginning to plant in my being what a baseline looks like for a relationship. So I'm going to be questioning mine when she shows up.
Love it.
So I'm going to call you guys and we're going to have a conversation about it. You know, what do I need to ask and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I'm not going to just redesign the model when the model is right in front of me. So again, all you guys that are listening, that was a private conversation, stay out of it. But I just want to thank you guys, both of you, for coming and sharing you with us, each one of you individually and you together. And it's been an honor and a privilege to have you and your energy to give me the place where I can relax and feel comfortable as well. Thank you both for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Well, thank you very much, Ken. It was our pleasure to be here.
Absolute joy, Ken. Really appreciate you and your energy and your vibe and the safe space that you allow for these conversations. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Man, we're going to stay.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.